And if people want to hear like the deep dive on your background as a cyclist, Alexey, I was just listening to the Silka podcast this morning that kind of goes into like your whole trajectory. I am curious though, something that wasn't covered in that podcast. I also grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm much younger than you. When I was growing up, cycling was a very strange activity for a young man to be involved in. And it brought with it a lot of consequences, like having people throw a lot of things at you from their cars and calling you names and stuff. At the time at which you got into it, I mean, the whole Lance era had already happened. It was a much more popular sport. Was there someone was your family involved in the sport, or like what drew you into cycling?
It skipped a generation, but my opa, my grandfather, was immigrated from Holland to Canada, and he raced in the 40s before the war, and then actually started the London Cycling Club in London, Canada, and that kind of transitioned. It kind of skipped my dad, but we started going on rides, and um, the first like moment that I remember doing like longer training rides was with him.
Because your origin story that I've heard is, it sounded like you were maybe a cross country runner in high school. You quote unquote got into triathlon. That's, you know, it's not the sport that most high school students are jumping into, besides Lance Armstrong, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and Lance wasn't like I. Lance is a weird topic, but I think as we get further away, there's more space to talk about it. For people that was in his era, right? It's a negative connotation. I I thoroughly believe that most people my age wouldn't have a career without Lance, and so it's an interesting spot, right? That someone who was an asshole to a lot of people, but had a very positive impact on probably more, in my opinion. Um, and so it's hard to talk about, but I think like Lance was definitely up there, but also there's just a lot of people that I think for me it was athletes in general that had this trajectory that I was enamored with when I was younger. Like Apollo Ono was another one, Rafa Nadal was another one. You listen to these stories, it's very much like King Richard, the movie just came out about the Williams sisters. Like they were all at a very young age told this is a possibility and it's up to what you make it. And that's kind of what my parents told me. It wasn't anything was given, but at the same time, it was like, hey, well, we're happy to support this if you want to put some time into it. And so I think it just kind of, I had this weird trajectory through sports because there was never a blockage. It wasn't like, hey, you can only play high school sports. It was like, what do you want to see? What do you see on the TV and you want to go try to do?
I think one of the reasons I'm thinking of Lance, yes, he was a highly influential cyclist during that era. Yes, he has a highly controversial reputation. And he started out as a swimmer, more or less. And then he got into triathlon. And from what I've heard you describe, that was kind of your path into becoming a professional cyclist, right? You started as a triathlete.
Yeah. Yeah. Just kids tried with my mom.
Just pulling on the arm warmers, wearing the singlet, getting out there. And Avery, how about you? Are your origins in cycling as well? I know we talked offline a little bit about skateboarding, just something my spider sense was tingling. I mentioned to you, I wrote for Big Brother, a pretty
Yeah.
seminal skateboarding magazine. I wrote for them quite a bit back in the day. And I just got this sense based on the content you are producing that you might have something to do with skateboarding.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, I don't know if I would call it cycling, but my background came from BMX. So I came up working at a really cool, unique place called Camp Woodward, which was like this crazy action sports compound, California, Pennsylvania. They had a couple locations, and yeah, it just started with being a skate park rat and filming my friends on BMX bikes doing tricks, and then eventually it graduated to the bigger wheels.
And every crew like that has the friend who's the filmer, or they're the kid who's the photographer in high school.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the role you played in your crew, or were you also in front of the camera?
No, I mean, it was definitely like that. I love BMX. I love the culture, the scene. I made my friends there, but I realized that BMX was not my talent. I was pretty prone to injury and just kind of got over that. And one year I said, maybe I should shoot photos of this. Photography sounds fun. So my parents got me a little Sony point and shoot camera, nothing special for my birthday. And yeah, that kind of kickstarted everything. This was, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Did you have a mentor?
No, no mentor.
This guy is a renegade. I love it. Wow. That's amazing. And when did these two incredible trajectories, that of the youth triathlete turned professional cyclist and BMX skate punk turned photographer, where did the intersection happen?
You want to take that, Alexey?
We slid in each other's DMs at Iceman.
That's right.
Yeah, no, we both knew of each other because Avery was the guy that most people went to in Michigan. We grew up an hour from each other in Michigan. And I think as Avery came into cycling, he was trying to figure out how to not just do generic photos, but how do I get involved in like the cool part of the sport. And I think we met at Iceman one time, and then we connected over Instagram, and then from there it's just been like the unique part of this ingredient started then, and it's hard to not jump into it immediately because this is the coolest part of my entire story for me. But like there was never like, hey, you come take photos for me for a sponsor and I'll pay you. Like never. It literally grew out of this space where like Avery's like, hey, like can I come out, like let's go for a mountain bike ride and I'll shoot, and like we'd go ride together and shoot photos and shoot video. And then of course you find places where it fits better, and you start to be like, okay, hey, I'm a cyclist, I don't have money, but I can pay you in bike parts, right? And so like you start to grow this, and that's the unique part of this, is that it's never, obviously there's money involved now, but it's never been about money. It's been a friendship and a relationship that's transitioned into a mutually beneficial business as well.
Has Avery ever demanded a wax chain?
Not yet. That's a new one.
Okay.
No. You're going to give him ideas, though. You got to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have to imagine those are pretty expensive, and you don't want to just be giving them out to anybody. I want to hit pause for a second though and talk about Michigan. I don't know if you guys have read the book, The Talent Code, but there's a lot of data that people who grow up in austere environments with kind of minimal access to high-tech training and equipment, those often are the environments that produce the highest levels of champions. You guys are champions of content right now, and Alexey, you're a champion athlete, but do you have any thoughts about being in Michigan and moving in the direction of becoming a professional cyclist? Because winter there is certainly not, it's not Monaco.
Yeah. I would take it two ways also. I mean, physically, yes. I mean, like I grew up believing that what I was doing was harder than what anyone else was doing, right? I grew up believing that I didn't need to go ride my bike on a trainer for 2 hours. I could go out and play hockey for 6, and it would be the same amount of training, if not more. In that same regard, like it was just what was given. It wasn't that everyone's getting S-Works bikes when you're younger and you're dreaming about it because Constantine and Schleck are battling it out. But I got a single speed with studded tires and we put weights on it, and I was excited to go ride it because I was like literally wasn't to get stronger. It was because I wasn't light enough to go through the snow to the ground and actually pedal, or heavy enough. So like it's all these ways that like I felt like what I was doing was unique. And when you're young, that's part of it, right? It's building your character as part of believing in what you're doing. And I don't think many people get there until they're in their 20s and like truly believing in themselves or what they're doing. But that also comes down to the other part of the Midwest or any austere environment like you're talking about, that I think a lot of it comes down to community. And like Michigan, more than any place in my opinion, has this like, we're Michigan and we're proud of it. And I think a lot of places have that, but that's always been instilled inside me. Even if I didn't live in Detroit or anything else, it's that same Detroit versus everybody vibe anywhere you go. It's like you will be adopted by the people you have around you. And as a kid, I mean, that's intoxicating. There wasn't anywhere I went that it wasn't a big deal for what I was doing, even if it was a small sport. Everyone was proud and made sure that I had the best opportunity I did. And I don't know, that to me, that pedestal you're lifted up on because of the community is almost more important than the environment around.
And you guys, you're going to have to remind me the name of the race, but one of the races that you've produced content around, it was a snowstorm. It was like 20 degrees at the start, I think. Which race was that?
Probably Barry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Barry-Roubaix.
Yes.
Yeah, Barry-Roubaix. Yeah,
and so just the idea of getting out there in 20-degree weather to go do a bike ride, I live in rural Maine. It's not something that I want to go do. Were you getting out and riding in the dead of winter pretty frequently in addition to playing hockey and those types of activities?
Yeah, I ride full around the year. I'm also not a fat bike guy. I'm very much like, how can I make my mountain bike or gravel bike able to just take this on and still be agile. Moving from Michigan to Boulder changed that a lot. You have just winter days. Then it melts 2 days later. But I'm never going to be scared of a winter storm. I mean, it's always you freeze your face and then everything else works out.
Okay. So Avery, why don't you give me your side of this cute meet when you all started working together? What was the experience? We've heard the Alexey side of it. What was the experience like for you, and how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it all started with an Instagram DM. It was around the time I was transitioning from small wheels on BMX, and I just kind of fell in love with mountain biking. And a lot of people naturally from BMX were kind of making that transition, more on the slope style side, still doing tricks. But living in Michigan, I was like, I'm gonna do cross country. Why not? Because this is what we have here, and it's relatively flat. And my dad got me into my first bike, and just like when I started BMX, it's like, okay, I want to shoot this stuff, but I don't have friends in this sport now. It's a whole new sport to me. So who can I reach out to? And I actually remember I was riding a local trail called Potawatomi, and Alexey flew by me and some friends. I don't know if he even knows this. And I'd been following him on Instagram, and I was like, holy crap, I think that's that Alexey guy. So like, I didn't know like where he even rode. So I think that was the day I DM'd him, and I just said like, hey, I'm a photographer. This is what I've been doing. Let's meet up and ride sometime and maybe shoot some photos. And that's kind of what initially sparked it all.
And at the time at which you reached out to Alexey, was Alexey doing any video work where he was in front of the camera?
No, I think his feed was actually pretty weak. That's another reason I reached out. You know, it was like,
savage.
This guy's a good athlete, and I think I could give him some great photos. Let's do this.
So, do you remember the first thing you guys worked on together?
Well, it's funny, we didn't actually like fully meet until Sea Otter, right? Like really meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tried to link up for so long, and then we both aligned at Sea Otter completely on different agendas. That's where we officially met, and then I think a couple more months went by, and then we finally got out in the winter and shot some fun photos of him on the trainer outside with his dog. Was that the first time, Alexey?
I think so.
Yeah. I just drove on down to Ann Arbor, and we had some fun.
It sounds like quite an interesting setup outside with the trainer and the dog.
Everything.
You got to make unique photos.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about this later in the interview, but now that the topic of the dog has come up, I don't want to go super deep in the New Yorker story, but the New Yorker story, Alexey, you were kind of passively mentioned in this list of characterizations of professional gravel riders as more or less being people pulling marketing stunts who were lesser caliber athletes. I would say that's how the New Yorker writer characterized that. What did you think about that characterization?
It was funny because I had like 6 people tell me, "Hey, you're in this article," and I saved it and I didn't sit down and, I mean, it's a hell of an article to read. It's long, right? So I saved it and finally just went through and read it. I don't know. I didn't mind or care. I don't think it portrays cycling very kindly. Like, I believe in what we're building, and I believe there's going to be kids that come out of high school leagues and have a career in cycling now in the U.S. And it makes it sound like whoever has the biggest pizzazz is going to win a bike race, which is exactly the opposite. But I mean, that's also how this goes, right? It's that thought process that maybe all good publicity is good publicity for cycling. How often are we in the New Yorker? But yeah, I haven't thought twice about it, but it wasn't something I read and I was like, I'm gonna repost this. It's good for cycling.
Right. And for people who aren't deeply familiar with your career, Alexey, you spent a number of years in Europe. You were pretty much on track to head in that world tour direction. And then you came back to the United States. You got involved in racing on the dirt. Again, people can go check out other podcasts if they want to hear a deep dive on that. I'll put a link in the show notes. But I'm curious, as you turned in a new direction, decided to pursue dirt-based racing, I know one of the things you did is you went deep on mountain biking, and it sounds like you grew up mountain biking. At that time, did you want to level up your skills as a mountain bike rider?
Yeah, I'll try to make this quick, but so racing in the World Tour was like the dream. It is I like getting there. It was amazing. It was everything I ever wanted. But then I quickly realized like, okay, what's the next step past this? Like, the only thing that I feel like I missed was racing the Tour de France, just because I had grown up idolizing these races. But when I moved on, I quickly realized that like if I wanted to be successful in the dirt, I had to fix what I was not good at. Which yeah, I grew up mountain biking, but in Michigan with roots, no rocks, no big descents that are, multiple minutes long. Um, and so to me, throwing myself in the deep end, even if I knew I didn't want to do short course like cross country racing, was the best way to do that. And so I just went and got my ass kicked pretty much for a year. Um, in August of that year, went and got a skills coach and did that for a week. But it's been a very long process. Like I always explain, like when I first started riding, I'd reached out immediately to Keegan and Russell, and those guys are great friends. And I was like, hey, can I pre-ride with you guys and try to like slowly get used to this? We were out in Whiskey, which is Whiskey 50 was a big endurance mountain bike race in Prescott, Arizona. I was pre-riding with them. I think I got dropped by 7 minutes on a 10-minute descent. That's hard to do. Um, and you can look at that 3 years later to getting dropped by 15 seconds to a minute, depending on the descent at Leadville with Keegan, right? And so people act like it's a big deal that the mountain bikers are winning the Grand Prix, but it's not surprising at all. And it's not quick. It's a very different, you have to handle your bike and protect your bike, even more importantly, to get through some of these races. So yeah, it's definitely a process where I was like, how do I learn how to do this? And then I'll get back to the being strong part.
I want to talk about deliberate practice and applying and learning skills in the context of the video project that you guys have together. That's part of my interest in this topic of how you tried to rapidly acquire the skills to race mountain bikes professionally. As you approach that, what was your strategy? How did you try to accelerate your learning, and what did you find to be effective and what did you find to be ineffective?
Yeah. I think my biggest asset in my entire career has always been just a bird's eye view on things. I've always been able to compartmentalize and figure out, okay, so that went wrong. Just close that box and move forward, and go back to it when you need to. And I think that was the biggest thing. I never got angry at myself. My coach and I looked at the year, and I've had the same coach since I was 14 years old, never changed. And we looked at the year and we said, hey, this is new for both of us. Let's just go into the year and learn what these races are like, how to be a mountain biker. And it was a lot of just kicking myself in the teeth, a lot of anger on course, because it's easy to be angry at yourself when you've been, when you're ahead and all of a sudden you move back to 25th place on 2 descents. Like it's hard to not be negative. And so over that process, a lot of it was just trying to be positive or figure out if something was negative, how do I fix it? And that's when the skills coach came in, and spending money on things that I thought would make me a better bike rider. And a lot of this came from wanting to learn again. A lot of us get to our places in our lives where we're stagnant and we're happy, and contentment is great until it's not, because when you feel content, it's usually that you're settling into something you eventually won't be happy with, in my opinion. And so that kind of pushed me to like, okay, leaving the road was scary, but I can learn so much. And the road felt like I had almost plateaued. I could get stronger each year, but I wasn't going to become a better person in any aspect of it. And so this forced me, not only on the bike, off the bike with Avery or in business or anything else, to learn how to be a better person. And I think trying to do everything at once was overwhelming, but also allowed me to take those steps back that I had to take sometimes to move forward.
So that's the athletic side of it. And part of the reality of being a professional athlete, specifically in cycling at this moment in time, is it is also about how you productize and brand yourself, your personality, creating content. It's the direction that marketing has moved. It's where the sport is headed. There probably will be something new and different after this, but that's where we're at right now. Part of why I wanted to have you guys on, I consume a lot of cycling related content. There are many people out there creating vlogs or things similar to vlogs. I find what you're doing to be quite unique. And part of what I picked up on is the dynamic between you two. It really shines through in the content, and it brings a unique dimension to what you're creating, in my opinion. And I'd love to hear about how you went from just going out doing photo shoots in the woods, breaking out the dog occasionally in the backpack, to now we have this video series, and not just a video series, but how did you approach it at that outset? And what was kind of your frame or the narrative that you wanted to go with?
Yeah. Do you want to jump in, Avery, or not? I want to set one thing clear because my girlfriend will kill me if not. Willie is her dog, and Willie came around like probably 2 years into Avery and I's relationship, so he wasn't around for the first bit. Um, and it's always a weird topic because I lean into it now, but it's something I'm always afraid of because riding with a dog in your backpack's cool till you crash the dog in your backpack. Then it's not that cool.
Have you done that?
No, I ride like 40% more safe than I do. Like you can't pretend like you can just ride. I mean, the dog is in like you have to ride. Like I yelled at my friend who was riding with his dog the other day because he just rides like he's riding a normal bike. And you can't take a risk. You can't ride like you can't see a root or a rock or anything else.
Okay.
But
we've set the record. We've set the record straight. All right, great.
So it took a long time, but I think Avery and I both believed in doing something different. Like constantly Avery would come to me and say like, how do you only have, like he was honest. Like he was like, your feed is subpar. How do you only have this many followers? How do we build this together? And I always was kind of enamored by that because he left a place where he wasn't looking for social media fame. He just wanted to find a way for us to do this together more. There's it's a very true and honest way to create this. And so as things grew, I think one of the first things we ever learned when we moved to Boulder together was think of a person that you are trying to think of your exact person that you want to watch this video, how old they are, what their interests are. And getting that information, I think, was really beneficial to us because it allowed us to distill down what we cared about. And so to me, like very simply, I think that Avery and I sat down and together said, all we care about is motivating and inspiring people. And doing that through what we're already doing is the best way to do it. It is always going to be race focused because races are what we're doing together. But that's not the point of it, right? My favorite part of this entire year was if you watch the Belgian Waffle Ride San Diego video. That would Avery in the middle of that realized that I was not getting feeds like I needed to, and had never fed any time in his entire life. Grabbed 2 bottles and drove out to the middle of nowhere on course to feed me. Ended up being the start to a great year, winning that. But had I hired someone or not had a friend in the person who was filming me, I wouldn't have won, let alone been in the final of that race. I would have had no water for over 100 miles. And so it's this relationship first focus that I think is our goal to put out in content, which is hard to do. But that's, I mean, from my side, and I think Avery's as well, that's my opinion. And I don't know. I actually want to hear what Avery has to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just this thing where we kind of sat down and said, like, what do we want to show, right? Like, I'm a full-time photographer, videographer by trade. Like, I don't only work with Alexey. I service a lot of clients, and a lot of those are his sponsors as well. But I always get messages on Instagram and wherever it be of like, people want to see my side of it too, which is so funny to me because I'm just doing my job. I forget that people find the media side of it interesting as well, because, while the footage just shows Alexey, there's a lot that goes on behind that as well. So, I mean, it's just, how can we kind of show both sides of that in a space where I feel like a lot of cycling vlog based content right now is just, about one thing: winning, not winning, an athlete, training. So where's that third, that second kind of dynamic of like what it really takes to get this done, and that it's not really just that simple of a process.
Yeah, and Avery, I want to talk about this. You guys break the fourth wall. Avery, you're in the videos, which I think is so cool. It's quite different from a lot of other content that's out there, particularly the super polished Instagram content, right?
Yeah.
Was this a conscious decision at the outset of the project that you actually would be on camera?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Did you talk about it, or did it just happen?
I think Alexey definitely pushed me to put myself on camera more because it's not something that I was super comfortable with at first. Not that I was against it. I'm just, the typical, if you've never turned the camera on yourself, I'm always behind the camera. So to be like, maybe I should show a little bit of the realness and personality to it, because then it becomes way more relatable. And, that's what people want to see, is relatability. So.
And when you sat down and had that initial conversation about the project, I'm imagining you guys at like, you're at a Dairy Queen in Boulder. Nah, I'm kidding. There's not a Dairy Queen in Boulder.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You're somewhere, you're at a vegan place in Boulder. You sit down and like you're drawing up the plan. Was there a sheet of paper? Was it a conversation? Did you have a computer? How did you riff on this idea?
Go ahead.
Well, I just think it's just a lot of conversations, a lot of phone calls, a lot of like, hey, let's meet up and just have lunch and talk, or hey, let's order Domino's and talk about it. Domino's with pepperoni. But it was, and I guess Avery's right. It wasn't an outset about having him involved, but it was an outset goal we wanted to show how the sausage is made, right? Which everyone talks about doing, but we're in a unique position that we're in the same hotel room. It's not like, hey, let me fake wake up again. Like Avery will get up 10 minutes before I do, and he'll be out there at 3:20 in the morning when I'm getting up at 3:30 for Leadville, and he'll be there, right? Because he's in the same house, he's in the same place, and it makes it very true and honest. And the same thing is we don't try to set things up or like film a set script. There's a couple times where you're like, hey, we should definitely say something like that, or we may take notes. But it's been this honest goal to like, hey, someone's going to also know how Avery set his camera up to shoot a passing cyclist. So, hey, Avery, you should try to turn that on, or have a GoPro on you. So it's not like, hey, we need to have Avery in it. It's more like the camera portion is interesting too, because it's hard to shoot this. It's not easy. We've constantly had to learn how to find usable footage that's actually beneficial to someone watching it.
And Avery, for you, I want to talk about that Belgian waffle ride moment. There's where Alexey misses the feed. I have so many questions about this, because you make this decision. You're like, I have to get him the bottles. And also you're taking the time to turn around the camera on yourself and talk about it while you have to do the thing, which I'm thinking is making it more complex and adding more friction and more pressure to actually getting it done. But it was a great shot. It was a nice moment. What was your experience in that moment, and how did you feel in that balance of, I've got to get the shot, versus if he's going to try to win the race, he's going to need to eat and drink?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm glad I understand the sport quite well now, because I think what a lot of people discount is like, to shoot these sports, you have to be a part of the sport. And I think that goes a long way in terms of what a lot of people don't think about. But yeah, there's moments when we're filming stuff for ourselves, which is, for fun, for YouTube, and I have to turn off and turn on the more like professional commercial side of my work, where like every shot has to be perfect, and the angles and the lighting and everything. And in moments like that, I'm filming him from the race, and it's absolute chaos. Every single event that I go to is absolute chaos. I mean, when the gun goes off and Alexey is, doing his thing, that's when my gun goes off as well. And I think like it's a lot more complicated than people think. The night before, we usually make a map of every, feed zone. We put these pins down, and okay, I'm going to shoot you here, and then I'm going to try to get a shot here and try to get a shot here. But logistically, it's a nightmare, because there's thousands of cyclists on this course. Lots of roads are closed. There's a lot of variables that go into it. So in Belgian Waffle Ride specifically, I had been at both feed zones, getting ready to film him, because there's only so many places you can film people on a course like this. And I watched him miss 2 feeds. And I thought, okay, I have multiple clips now of Alexey just not getting fed. What's that going to do for us? And then I thought, and what's going to happen to him now? So, in these chaotic moments, I just thought, this is more important than, trying to get a cool slow motion shot of him in a race. Like, I know he needs to eat. Like, at the end of the day, He wants to win the race. This has nothing to do with our YouTube series. So yeah, just quick moments like that where I panic and try to find a point where I know he's going to be coming through. And thankfully we plan ahead for all this stuff. And I had extra food and bottles in my car. And in that specific moment, I drove 40 minutes out of the way into the desert to a feed zone that I wasn't planning to go to. And then I'm sweating. I got all my nerves going and realized, okay, I have 10 minutes before the estimated time for them to get here. Let me just set up my iPhone and try to document this moment of feeding him.
And for anyone who's listening who doesn't understand what happens in a professional cycling race and the way feeds happen, there's someone standing on the side of the road. They're holding a bottle or a musette, which is a bag. They hand it up. The rider who's passing by, usually at around 25 to 35 miles an hour, grabs the bottle or musette, and then they consume it. That's not an easy thing to do. So, Avery, had you ever handed up a bottle before to
No,
somebody?
I was terrified. Because, I watch feeds happen all the time, and there's just there's a bunch of dudes just reaching their arm out as far as they can to, hopefully get this small bottle into their hand as, 80 men are, hauling ass at them at 60 miles an hour on a bike. So I'm like, well, I've seen this happen before, but I've never done it. So I went up the hill a little bit to make sure I could separate myself from that crowd, because I was a little nervous. But yeah, I managed to get it done somehow twice.
Good job. And Alexey, I have to ask, how many grams of carb were you running in your bottle? I mean, people want to know.
Oh, those were full scratch super fuel. It's not called super fuel anymore. What's it called now?
High carb drink mix, super high carb. Yeah.
But no, like I it's funny because I follow this line of like trying to be efficient, but I think both of those were like 120 grams of carbs, 110. Like they were pretty high.
Like 400 calories a bottle. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think both of them were in Avery's car were emergency bottles. Like, oh shit, something's gone wrong. Like I'm probably, if I need this, I need this. So I think they're both pretty.
Okay, and how would you rate Avery's hand up?
Oh, spectacular. I was more nervous watching him than I was grabbing the bottle.
He had
a stance like I could have run into him, and I think he still would have had the bottle there. He had a wide stance.
I extended that arm as far as I could, and I was shaking, but we got it done.
Nice. That's where the martial arts training comes in. Yeah,
exactly.
And I think one of like Avery just alluded to it, but having someone who understands the sport and understands you is crazy important, right? Like even just when he knew I was off the front going to win that race and he's at the finish line, having that moment to like, he sat down and set two cameras up, one that was running slow-mo, one that was running normal, so we could use the audio over the slow-mo. Like it takes someone who understands the sport and know there's going to be announcing, that you're going to need the announcing talking about the finish line, but also you want a beautiful shot of this finish to, I don't know, to make this special and make you feel like you're at these events. Because I am definitely not the most important part of this video series we have.
And Avery, you talked about this a little bit in terms of planning out where you're going to get different shots and where the different feeds are on the course and probably where you actually can get access. Mm-hmm. But Alexey, for you as a racer and someone who's going out and competing at the very highest level of these disciplines, what additional pressure does that add or not? And what additional logistical complexity does it create to be thinking about, I'm producing a video shoot with Avery and I'm going to do this race?
It definitely adds something. But I think we get better at it every time. It's mainly, it's just time, right? Time is money, and you could be sleeping or anything else. I mean, I think Leadville, we kind of talk about it, but I don't think I got to bed before 11:30 because we were shooting what we were doing, right? We were creating, like, it's not just that I need to make bottles. I want to make them with Avery there because that is interesting. That's something that I think is educational and motivational. So a lot of it is literally spent looking at a map and mapping out, going on Google Earth or having done part of the course and knowing where we want Avery. I mean, we'll have a video come out where we detail that a lot. We've been trying to get it out for a while. This is on Belgian Waffle Ride, Michigan. But I think we spent 3 hours like printing out a big map over multiple pieces of paper, putting it all, like all the mileages on, time we estimated me to get there, and like each place was what kind of shot we wanted from that place, whether it was slow-mo or wide angle, or hey, there's a tree canopy here, or hey, we need a drone shot. So in Avery's complex, like it's already crazy for Avery when I'm racing, right? Like no matter what, it's going to be crazy. The last thing he needs to do is complicate that more. So that's something I try to do beforehand is, hey, I'm going to make pins on Google. I'm going to send you a whole set of pins, and he can go pin 1, pin 2, pin 3. So he knows exactly where to go during a race. So I wouldn't say it's complex during the race at all. It's just beforehand.
And Avery, for you, as you mentioned, you have to kind of approach this with a few different mindsets. One is being opportunistic, doing what you can in the moment to capture the footage in whatever context you're planning ahead. There's the professional or commercial creative lens that you're applying. What have you learned from doing this, and what new approaches have you discovered from the process of being involved in the project, if any?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, one thing I've learned, I think, just in the recent, few months is that real is always better. You don't need to necessarily overcomplicate everything. And while I get a great joy out of, beautiful cinematic video creation, that like true documentation is what I find to be the most relatable and the most fun at the end of the day. Um, and I do still integrate, some creativity into every shoot we do. It's who I am, and I like to have fun with that. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of just truly documenting what we're doing and being real and raw about it, and not scripting anything and just shooting things as they come. And I think that usually creates the best content at the end of the day.
And I don't know if we're going to get a bloopers reel at the end of the season or in the limited off season that's about to happen. But Avery, from your point of view, what have been some of the just oh shit moments, or where things didn't go quite the way you thought they might?
That's about every other second when we're talking about racing. I mean, we, like I said, we make as much of a detailed plan as we can the prior night, and a lot of this happens. A lot of this goes smoother because leading up to any race, we're out pre-riding, and he's riding the whole course, and I'm following him in a car, and I'm making subconscious decisions of, okay, this spot's going to work great. They're going to come right through here on the race. I've already shot here. I know what my shot's going to be tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, there's just so much unknown come race day, right? There's a big pack of dudes. I don't know if he's going to be in the middle of it, and I can't see him. There's times where the police tell me, nice try, you're not going here anymore, you thought you were. There's times where I get my last checkpoint and I have to hop on the highway and I'm stuck in traffic and freaking out that I won't get to the finish line in time. So it's a lot of hoping and wishing, but at the end of the day, it seems like we managed to get most of the shots. But it's definitely a wish list, not something that can be finite and guaranteed.
And Alexey, from your point of view, have there been moments when things have gone off the rails that you didn't anticipate happening?
Not really off the rails. I mean, I think we're both pretty even keel. We spent enough time together to, if it's gonna go crazy, it's gonna happen over time. I'm like, okay, we need to go spend some time apart before we bite each other's heads off. But no, I mean, all the little things is mainly just like, I feel like the things that are like Avery talked about, we want it to be real. And so some of these like race recap moments are like, hey, let's recap the day. We're like, oh, we'll do that later. And we never do it because we don't actually care. We think it's important to the video to add context to a greater story. But it's like, the Iceman's a great point. Like, we never did it, right? And we were like, okay, how do we still make this interesting and fun? So we're like, oh, let's just go build a table outside my garage and shoot a video, right? But it's not something, it was because we had put it off for so long, knowing we had to do it, that it was the last piece of the video that we needed to finish it. So I think it's mainly just us causing ourselves more stress by not finishing everything. Like, I think we have every 10 or 12 videos like in a pipeline that we like we're trying to put out now in order. Like, oh, what's this one missing? Oh, what's that one missing?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a weird process to learn how to do. Like, I want to learn how to video edit, but right now that's all on Avery. So like, Avery will follow me in a car, like a longer day than I have most of the time, right? He'll spend 6 hours in the car or 4 hours in the car pre-riding behind me. He'll finish, he'll come film me at the expo, whatever I'm doing, and we'll get done, and he'll be home dumping cards while I'm taking a shower or relaxing with my legs up. And so we finish these weekends and we're like, holy shit, man. Like, that was great. That was fun, good experience. But like, of making the video is the last thing on your mind at that point, because you just live this experience and have this memory together. And then you're like, oh shit, we need to tell these other people about it because we said we would. And I think that's what we're trying to figure out most is like what's the pacing of that, because we want it to always be real and not rush it out because YouTube says you should get a video out in a certain number of days.
And I believe it's in the Iceman video, and that's the one where you built the desk out of your sponsor product cardboard boxes. That was genius. I loved it. It was such a nice touch. And I don't remember if it's in that video, but you talked about the number of flights you took this year. Was it you guys took over 40 flights together?
44 flight segments, yeah.
Flight segments. Right.
Yeah, so,
So
like I had
that's
22 round trip flights.
okay. And part of what I enjoy about this series, having followed the Lifetime Grand Prix and gravel for a while, and as a journalist, I've been writing about gravel since 2005. Actually, I wrote about Trans Iowa in the early days, and you really show the glamour of being a professional athlete in this sport. And when I say glamour, I'm being very ironic, but seeing you guys in some of the hotel rooms that you're in with all this stuff spread out everywhere, it makes me laugh. I love it. But
Yeah.
what's the experience like in the moment? It looks pretty hectic a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everything's is hectic. It's part of like this learning experience for me. Like it's very different. Like no one's booking hotel rooms, picking me up from the airport anymore, right? I have to make sure I get a rental car that's going to fit a bike or two bikes. If Avery's bringing a bike, and I got to make sure I book the flights correctly. I've done that once incorrectly this year. Like you got to make sure you have everything on, and I try to like once again compartmentalize it for myself. Like I'll book everything through Unbound, like in December, and I'll book everything from Unbound on probably in like March when I have a little bit of a hiatus. But it's it's part of the fun, right? Especially when you start doing some of these longer trips like we did, like to Finland. Like it's not gonna go right. Nothing that you plan travel wise or anything else is gonna work, and so it's like the hectic is the fun part of it. Like, oh wow, that was weird what we just encountered together. Like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna go to Finnish McDonald's now? Oh wow, they have a new menu item. Like it's very normal everyday stuff, and the question is, do you pull your camera out or not during it? So yeah, I don't know. I've had a blast having a friend, and I think that's the biggest portion of this. Is like when I first did this in 2019, I did the privateer thing by myself, all the same races for the most part, and I was alone. And you're not alone the whole time. You go and you pre-ride with your friends, and you get back. But like, I have a friend to have dinner with. I have a friend to go chat with. It doesn't always have to be on camera, and that's what makes this fun to me, even if it's hectic.
Avery, what about you?
Yeah, same. I mean, it is hectic for me. Like as we go into as we go into every trip, leading into it, and I'm getting better at this, but I start to stress a lot. There's tons of camera gear. There's money invested, there's time invested, and I need to capture this story and make it worth it for us in a sense, because there's a lot that goes into it, and it can be a nightmare at times. So it's chaotic, but I think we're new to this. Like we're very new. It's funny talking about this like we're some YouTubers that have been, have this big following, but it's something we definitely want to grow. And I kind of tend to thrive in the chaos once I'm in it. While it is, hectic, it is nice to have that dynamic between the two of us where I never feel like I'm there to work. It just feels like we're there to have a lot of fun. And how can I portray that with my camera?
And how has your approach to telling stories evolved since you started working together, either from a process point of view or how you think about the narrative arc of the product you're creating?
I think it's changed a lot over time. I mean, yeah, I would say significantly. I mean, prior to this, I just consider myself like a camera operator. You know, I would know how to get cool shots and, send a lot of the work off to other people to edit, or just, make a cool sizzle reel with awesome music and beautiful shots. But now, like, that's a whole nother part of me that I have to subconsciously think about, is that like, okay, we're trying to convey a story here and like show people really it is what we do. Like it doesn't matter how beautiful it is. Like we want to, show the realness of this and what it is we're actually doing together. And that actually involves a little more thinking of, we need to explain this, or, we need to tell an actual story here, rather than just think, oh, look how cool this is,
And Alexey, from your point of view, how has it evolved?
I think it's just evolved from basic thinking, right? To thinking we're trying to produce something on social media to just enjoying and believing in what we're doing. Like, I think that's the beautiful part of this for me is I would say the least prepared we ever were for a video was Iceman.
Yeah.
But it's also a home race, right? We've been there before. We knew what we had to film, and it is one of my favorite videos we've ever made because we had, it was this like we're not done this for a while, but we had 80 people send us videos that created the intro like from their cell phones. Like that to me is beautiful, right? Like everyone being involved, they were at the race themselves, probably raced themselves beforehand, and then that gets put into this story we're trying to create. That guess what, Avery was racing too, so he couldn't shoot it. And I think that's this ever evolving goal is that i I never want to be the focus of this, and I never want Avery to be the only focus. I never want us to be. I want it to be this constant evolution of where are you going and how are you interacting with the people you're with there, right? And I think, a testament to that is like Iceman has almost 20,000 views more than any of our videos right now. And it's a slow process toward how do you find what people want, right? People don't want to be sold anymore, and I'm not trying to sell equipment. That's the companies I'm working with. Avery's not trying to sell cameras when he's explaining how to work on something. We enjoy what we do. We're already going to film it for different reasons, whether it's for photos for a sponsor, specific obligations. But then, hey, why won't we just upload this to another medium and see if it's helpful to people or inspiring? And I think that's the interesting part. Like you read through comments, and I'm like, you have people that are, I did that race back in the 70s or the 80s, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a long time ago. And so it's like you're interacting with people that I didn't even know existed on social media, right? That's the beauty of social media. It's the reason that, like, obviously you have the background of Strava. It's the reason that I love Strava. It's not that I care to post my power data or anything else. I literally got on Strava because my grandma wanted to follow me in Europe and see. She would go every day. She'd look at Strava and she'd say, holy shit, I was there on a National Geographic trip. Or like, that's the beauty of it, right? And social media has negative connotations, but Avery and I are slowly figuring out what's beautiful about it for us.
And what about the sport of cycling itself? Having both of you have been involved in cycling in different capacities for most of your lives, it sounds like. Through this experience, what have you learned about the community of people who ride, or what cycling brings to people and brings into their lives? Have you learned anything new or different?
I mean, for me, I'll jump in and Avery can add on. Like, I've always found it very interesting, even though cycling was my career and I had a very race focused version of it for the first portion until I finished racing in Europe in 2018. I never understood why, like, everyone gets on a bike at 12, but then half of us set it down. But anyone who gets back on a bike probably stays on a bike the rest of their life. Like, it's the first moment of freedom for any of us. And there's a reason bikes are special, right? It's whether like you can't run your whole life, your bones are going to give out or anything else. You can go so far and see so much, and you can go places that motorized vehicles can't go. And I find that special, and I think the more people you can bring that to, the better it is, right? I mean, even if it's like bad juju in a way, like I used to have juju's the wrong word, but like I used to, like in high school, like you're talking about, I'd go training and I'd have someone honk their horn and scream by, come like, oh, fuck you. And it would be my friends. They would stop the car, come apologize, and then keep driving. Right. And because they liked me, they didn't like the inconvenience that cycling was causing them. And it's this weird thing that for some reason cyclists have always been in the way. And that's why the gravel has been so cool to me, is they're less in the way now. Like, it's not like cars and bikes are never going to coincide perfectly, but there's ways to make it work. And I think part of what I believe we're doing is education of the sport, right? Hopefully it's reaching out to people that are maybe there because their cousin is a bike racer, but they don't understand why. And Willie might be the icebreaker for that conversation. They're not coming to our YouTube channel to watch us race bikes. They're coming because they saw a cute dog, right? And I think it's hard to put that into words and film, but that's the overarching goal, is more feelings than it is just content for content's sake, because no one cares about that anymore.
And if they're coming to look at the dog, let's just be clear, it's not Alexey's dog. So Avery, on your side, what have you learned about cycling, about community that maybe you didn't know before, or has it been about the same as you knew?
I mean, I would say it's been about the same. It's this community that I've been a part of for so long now that's so special to me. That's like anything else I've ever been a part of. I mean, what's funny is prior to BMX even, like I was a video game kid. I didn't get outside I didn't play a sport in my life until I, hopped on a BMX bike. And then that was really like that wasn't even much of a sport. That was hanging out at the skate park with your friends and, just, messing around all day. So when I actually got involved in this community, which is like I never would consider myself an athlete until recent years, it's a community like no other. I think cycling's really special in that, and that we all have very similar energy, I would say, at the end of the day. And it's even more so, it's funny, like cycling is so small in terms of sports, and I think a lot of cyclists forget that. It seems big when we're in it, but in reality, to the grand scheme of the world, like it means nothing. It's so tiny. So when we're at events, and Alexey doesn't even see this too, because he might be out riding or whatever, the amount of people that approach me, and this just last year, and say like, I love what you guys are doing on YouTube. I would love to know more about the camera side of it too, what you do. Like I would never expect those questions to happen because it's just what we do. So I don't know. It just seems like an awesome community, and I've always loved being a part of it.
How has your relationship evolved through this process of creating this series together?
I don't know if there's any boundaries anymore.
It's stressful at times, I'll say that. Like we're definitely figuring it out. I definitely have an issue getting stuff out on time. I know that. But I think it's evolved a lot. We've just become really close and vulnerable at times, and like we all want the same thing at the end of the day, and we're figuring this out together every single day, what we want it to be and what it can be.
Yeah.
Alexey.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, there's nothing, no matter if it's a roommate or a brother or anything else, if you spend this amount of time with someone, you're going to find the things that they wanted to hide from you. And I think that's also the beautiful part. Like I enjoy that. I enjoy, like I said, having a friend on the road, and this being more than just the goal of creating a video. And I think it's a testament also, like we don't talk about this very much publicly, but like Avery's not paid what he's worth, right? I don't have the money to pay Avery what he's worth, but that's also the beauty of this, is he's not looking for money. And there's this just organic growth of what we've built. And I think it's just pride, right? Like both times we get angry at each other, but it has nothing to do with actually being angry. It's like, oh, we both should have gotten something done in the last week, and now we're 2 weeks behind what we wanted to do, and we're at another race, and that's now not going to happen. Like we had a really cool Unbound video. Where did it go? Non-existent, right? Like it's those little things that you just like, you rest on it, but then the minute you're trying to catch back up, it's gone. And I can still, like, we still want to get that video out, but at what point and when is...
I still want to see that video. Please put it out.
Yeah. So, but those are the things that I think is just like, it's, yeah, I don't know. We are closer than I ever thought I would be with someone whose quote unquote job is to film and video what I do. And at the same time, it makes it so simple, because literally half of this is just, oh, hey, you're leaving tomorrow? Cool, I'll come by. And like, we filmed the Iceman video, and then Avery came to pick me up to drop me off at the airport at 6 a.m. or 6:30 the next morning. Like, it's more than just, the video stuff. And so I think that makes it easy, that if you're annoyed or something, you just kind of vent your shit and move on.
Yeah. And I think right now it's an interesting relationship. They say whatever, in a way that you shouldn't be business partners with your friends. But I think what we do kind of works out well in a way, and we just understand each other to that degree, and we're both wanting to do the same thing. It's just a matter of, how we're going to make it work.
We both have other jobs.
Yeah.
Did either of you play in bands when you were younger?
Yeah, I played in orchestra.
No, nothing.
Okay. Nothing?
Nothing.
All right.
I'm not coordinated.
I don't believe that. I saw you running with that GoPro, and I saw your hand up, Avery. So that's bullshit.
Avery can sprint with a gimbal, man. He's got like 45 seconds inside of
that. I can do. I got a mean gimbal run. But
Okay, now we have to know, Alexey, what did you play in the orchestra?
Violin.
Violin. Okay.
I still like that was the one thing I kept going back to school for. My principal was nice enough or kind enough to try to create something where I could like run cross country with my school and graduate with my class, even if I was racing in Europe for 3 months at a time. So he created this program where I had a seat in every class that I took. So when I was home, I could go in. And only like when I'd come home, I'd go in at 7 a.m. to play orchestra until junior year when I was just gone too much. But
That's
well, I
amazing.
don't know. You learn a lot from instruments.
You do. You learn a lot. One of the things that I'm thinking about right now, I grew up playing in punk rock and hardcore bands. If you were in Kansas City between like 89 and 93, you know the Larry Jones Experience. We were one of the biggest names out
Can I
there
look
at
it
the
up on
time.
iTunes?
I don't think we're on iTunes. We were, gosh, I mean, we're talking cassettes at the time. Maybe I'll throw something up on SoundCloud for listeners. But there's something that you learn when you were spending time with other people on creative projects that last over time that I don't think you can. You can have similar experiences. Like I've had similar experiences, like when I was an executive at Strava working
Yeah.
with my teammates. You're doing intense, fun things together. You're spending a lot of time together, but you get to know people in a really different way than you do in almost any other context. And again, that's just, I'm not in your project, but that's part of the vibe that I'm getting from it and that I enjoy from it. And one of the things, you guys didn't mention this, but Alexey, watching you the night before races at like 10 p.m., changing a chain ring or tires, that's actually something that, I'm a pretty mediocre bike racer. My best results were I twice got second at the Unbound 100 before like Ashton Lambie and Peter Sagan were showing up. But that's the kind of thing like I would do where one of my training buddies or a guy, a close friend of mine that I used to race with a lot, he was always like, dude, like, what are you doing? Go to bed. So watching the video, I was like, hey, this is what the best in the world do. Is that a common thing for you, or you didn't seem stressed out at all doing it?
I feel like I've done it more than I should have this year. There's a lot. Like I'm not gonna lie, my plate's very full from what I feel like just from the racing side of it. Like if I was just racing, it's probably half of what I'm doing. And so I feel like sometimes my personal race stuff comes last. And it's maybe not the best time to get it done, but I didn't have time on the Wednesday or Thursday before. And it makes for good content, so I may as well just keep doing that. And but like it doesn't always go right. It doesn't like
Yeah.
I over tightened. They were doing a film. They just came out with there's a film crew following the Lifetime Grand Prix that did a short story, and they wanted to film me getting my bike ready for Leadville. That's why Avery didn't film it because they filmed it, and I over tightened my seat post, like trying to torque it down. They wanted the noise. I just kept going and like kept going for the noise, and didn't even use the shot, which is funny. But the dropper wouldn't come up. So like the whole first, like Lachlan Morton's like giving me his multi-tool. We're riding up a hill. I'm like trying to loosen my seat post, but not let it drop. Like it's not the right way to do things, but I don't like. Not everyone has mechanics, and that's very, very real to most people, right? And as long as you understand how a bike works, like there's not usually an issue, right? It's a thought process of I did it, someone else didn't, and so that means okay, hey, what's the only thing that could be wrong with my dropper? I over tightened my seat post. The only thing, right? Or like a chain ring. You better ride around that next morning and make sure that the dang thing works with your chain and carry that chain to the start, right? Like know these things in your head if you're going to make not stupid decisions, but decisions that have repercussions.
You must have a really high level of confidence in chain length because when you're changing the chain rings, you have to have the perfect chain length or you're going to have a problem the next day, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting easier with gear ratios. Those derailleurs can take more and more. But yeah, and you have to definitely like, I think off that video, I think I literally measured and added a link. Like I measured exactly link by link because it wasn't worth like it was what 9:30 or 10 at night, and I was like, this is not going to be fun. But even like that's the beauty of being able to figure these things out. Like I raced a full Dura set instead of a GRX, which doesn't have a clutch. So like I believe I ran like a link short of what it should be, at the expense of possibly ruining a derailleur later on. But like there's all these like when you learn how to be a mechanic, which I was horrible until COVID. I just broke a bunch of shit and learned. Like it makes it fun. Like the bike build videos Avery does, like the 3T one, I bet it took us 3 days. Like I kept not having the right part or like different things go wrong. Like, but you learn so much in those moments that it makes it possible to do it on the race course. Because you built the whole bike yourself. What else could go wrong?
Avery, it looks like you're sitting on something that you've been wanting to say for the past year. What have you got?
No, it's just funny you say that because you said, "Oh, this is what even the best of the best do." Because I vividly remember it was 10 p.m. the night before Belgian Waffle ride, and he's going to switch chain rings, and I go to
Avery
get my
asked if I was. Yeah.
No, I go to get my camera. He's like, "Please don't film this." He's like, "You know what? Film this." I was like, "No, we need to film it because it's true. It's like people need to see that this is not some crazy grand scheme operation. Alexey doesn't have a pro mechanic with him doing all the stuff for him. Like, we are making split minute decisions the night before the race, and we're going to find out if that pays off or doesn't."
We saw what happened.
Exactly.
We saw that it paid off.
And it worked.
Yeah. So as you guys look ahead, what are your plans for evolving the project? And if you had an unlimited budget, what would this look like? What would you want to do?
I've been asked this a couple times, but just like not in like an unlimited budget sense, but like, hey, we have more money. Like, would you like a mechanic? And I've multiple times I've been like, no, I'd rather have 2 filmers, because like that's the interesting part here. We want to eventually have 2 people so that we have multiple angles, because that's the interesting part, right? We want someone to film what Avery's doing. We want someone to film what I'm doing. But people have to believe in it, right? It's only worth what it's worth. The same as privateer cycling now. You are worth what you're worth. The weird part about that New York article, the one thing they got right, is it's not about how much extra stuff you do or how cool your kit is, in my opinion, but it is about what value you actually give to a company, right? You are a marketing avenue now. Maybe it's not fair to compare us to Google or Amazon, because we're never going to compare to those analytics. But, you know, if a company's giving you a amount of money, you need to give that back in some sense. And that's the beauty of this, is if it works, people want to be involved, right? I mean, Envy saw what we were doing and was like, Avery, hey, can you film a launch for our bike? Like that, I think that was the first bike launch Avery had done, and it was big for both of us, right? We got to film something over multiple months that was more than just what we were doing. So for me to see, like, I want to see growth that comes organically, and I think that means like slowly trying to invite more friends to come do this with us, and like, hey, you want to race a bike? No problem. Let's also have you film, which we did at Sea Otter last year, but like more of that. Because I think the more you shoot, the cooler it gets. And then Avery and I have talked about multiple times, we want to hire an editor, but we think that takes away the beauty of what we're doing.
How so?
Because Avery's unique in this, right? This goes through the Alexey Avery tunnel and gets squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. Like, Avery will take it and cut it down from, say it's like easy number, say it's an hour, cut it down to half an hour. And then he'll leave things in that are doubles, like me saying things in 2 different ways or someone else leaving. And then I'll go through, he'll just send me literally on Google Drive or something. And I'll go through and just tell him minutes to cut out and things that I think need to be added that I remember we filmed. And then he'll re-edit it. He's doing everything himself. And so Avery's part of this job is way harder than mine is right now. And when you talk about getting videos out on time, which we try not to hold ourselves to, but is just honest, that's the holdup, is editing. It takes a long time to do things well.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I edited the first, I think, 55 episodes of this podcast. I do have a background in audio and video production, but it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work. Yeah, of course. If you care about your creative project, you want it to be its very best.
And how did you let that go? Because that's our biggest thing. How do you let your baby go into someone else's hands? Like, who do you test? How do you test them?
That would be a good conversation to have. It took me a while to find people that I trusted, and it's you have to find people you have a high level of confidence that you can transfer your knowledge and your understanding of what you believe to be unique about what you're doing. And not everybody's going to be able to do that. And you have to take a leap of faith. And you also, I think, have to understand with the project that you're doing, where do you add the greatest value? And what is the most unique and valuable thing you can add to what you're doing? And what is it best to have other people do? And actually, I've got this book here, Ray Dalio's Principles. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend getting it. He talks a lot about designing a machine to execute your ideas in business, but it's something that you can apply to life, to creative endeavors, whatever. So I think it's a really valuable way to think about it. But Avery, I wanted to come back to you. So we got Alexey's version of what would, sky's the limit, blue ocean vision of what you would like to do with this project. Where would you like to take it?
It's a great question, and it's a weighted question because I think of this in my head, and I think very big vision. I mean, it's the dream to be able to just do this one day. Like, I think it'd be cool to where we just travel around and go to races and make our own content. But I think one thing that could be really cool next year that I would love to work on is it's not just about racing. I don't want our channel to just be race highlights, and race videos. And every year we have the same 12 videos at each race. I think something that could be really cool to evolve to is just making content in our day-to-day training life, my work, his work, showing that experience at a way more intimate level of just, this is what Alexey and I do in an average day. He got a new bike. This is documenting us going out for 5 hours to try to shoot images of that bike, or, going on trips for cycling, but that have nothing to do with racing like it did with Finland, right? We have some cool potential stuff coming up in this next year that I think fits that bill well, but just making content for the sake of making content. It doesn't have to be tied to an event or stuff like that.
Can you guess who our YouTube idol is, Andrew? It's not hard. You don't have to think too hard.
No, you're gonna have to tell me. I can think of the one that everyone always says, Casey Neistat, but I don't think Casey Neistat is your hero, is it?
It is. Well, it's for me.
Okay.
I don't know for
All right.
Like for me, it's Casey. It's Casey to me is interesting because it's what Avery's talking about on a much bigger scale than cycling, right? Like,
Sure.
I want cycling to always be our focus because there's an interest there, and I think Casey's much more wide angle. It's his daily life, right? That's he kind of creative vlogging in that sense. But Casey takes a person to a place that he goes. That's what's special. I very rarely remember even what he's trying to talk or what he titled the video. He takes you there and you get to experience something with him over video. And I think that's like, when you talk about taking this further, like, that to me is like, it can be special if you can find a way to do that in your way, right? There's a lot of people are talking about comparing like Emma Chamberlain now to Casey, and then it's very personable, as opposed to just spending money on a set video or a set studio and creating something, whether it's Marquise Brownlee or Mr. Beast, right? It's a person to person focus instead of a person to product focus. And I don't know, I want it. Casey inspires people, right? You see him walk around New York and he inspires people. We don't never need to be big, but I want to, in our little niche, in our little pond, I want people to want to do what we're doing. Because I'm so, the fact that I haven't had a real job yet, should knock on some wood, has been incredible. And like, I just want to keep riding my bike and enjoying that. And to do that with a friend is incredible.
I would agree with you. It's pretty amazing to be able to have that be the thing that you're doing. And I love the content that you guys are putting out. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. I want the Unbound video. I don't care when it drops. So I hope that that's something that's coming soon.
There's some good wax chain video in there.
Oh, yeah. Love a good wax chain.
Yeah. I think our best video idea yet that I need to stir up again is we spend a day where I ride the bike and Alexey shoots photos of me and hops in the car, and we reverse roles a little bit and see what that looks like.
Let's see how Alexey's hand-up game is.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Whoa, it's good. Don't you worry.
Okay, fantastic. All right, well, guys, thanks so much for your time. If people want to learn more about you as individuals, if they want to check out the series, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, we have the YouTube's Alexey and Avery. That's all it is. We obviously didn't think much of the title, but then both of our names are our Instagrams, Avery Stumm, at Avery Stumm, and at Alexey Vermeulen. There's no social media for the series or anything we're doing yet.
Yeah, most of what we do is on Instagram, day to day.
Go to Instagram. Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's great to meet you. Thanks for your time. This was fun.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
Okay,
thanks for having us.
Ciao.
All right.